I can't hear your beard.
Your beard is not talking to us.
But now I can see a grid of people and myself twice.
We got.
Hopefully we don't have a repeat of what both you and I did, Marty, when we were like with 2 devices and we started getting serious feedback.
Which one looks better to you guys? I think the new one looks better.
It's pretty trippy, actually.
Wow.
Anytime someone does this, I'm reminded of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game. You gotta fight Shredder, and there's like a clone of Shredder.
Oh yeah. Wait, what?
Which one's the real one?
So we got 1 minute to start. And since we have kind of a big lineup, I think I'm just going to kick us off right on
What is
time.
what is our timing going to be? How long's the whole thing, and how long's each of us?
So I was talking with Paul earlier, and he thought that he could try to keep his to a half hour. So I think if we each kept it to a half hour, we'd be good.
Yep.
You know, the idea with having Paul at the end is he has lots of extra stuff, so he could always fill time. We're not going to have a social, since that's Zach, what we're going to be doing with you next week. So
Hey, Scott.
Hey, Scott.
Scott, you're muted.
He's probably still connecting.
Hello. No, I'm muted.
Yeah. And hello to John. I don't know if I said hi.
There's a lot of people showing up.
Yeah, maybe we can get really teeny tiny screens here. So it is officially 6:30, so I'm just gonna kick us off right away. And now we can see Chris. Hey, Chris. So we're gonna show some hardware, some hacks that we've done. I thought I'd just start us off with kind of sharing my screen. Hey, Tim. Sharing my screen and going through a little bit of a history. I promise I won't bore you. But before I start with that, does anyone, without Google searching this, I trust you, does anyone know when the first head-mounted display was created? Any takers? Any guessers?
Well, I'm guessing it's got something to do with the picture that was on the Meetup page.
And actually that picture was not the first one.
Oh.
But it was nearly the first one.
Well, so does it have to be a digital display?
No.
Oh, the one in the picture.
Yeah. So let me clarify. The first digital head-mounted display.
Oh.
Does not need to have head tracking. What are people thinking?
Digital.
I would guess the
60s?
60s, but maybe 70s.
Good guess. Want to throw a year on that, Marty?
I'll say 68.
68. Okay. Anyone think a different year?
Boy, is it digital or video?
It would be, let's just say like along your line, Scott, with motion pictures, that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Because the stuff in the late 70s, early 80s, Zach, what's his name, the guy with the dreadlocks, that stuff was all analog.
The display was,
Yeah, the display was analog.
Yeah. So what's your guess, Scott? What do you think? What year?
Oh gosh, I don't have a clue. You
don't want to play. Come on, we need someone to challenge Marty.
They were doing some stuff in 78, but I'm guessing somebody did something before then.
Okay. Anyone else? Chris.
Marty said 68. I'll go 67.
67. Okay.
The price is right.
Anyone for 66? Any takers for 66?
I'll go 64.
64 for Chris. Okay. Anyone for 65 or 63? Any guessers? Any takers? Okay. The answer, and I'm going to screen share now. The answer is 1960.
Whoa. What?
Okay. So let's see. I can get my tab. I can show that one of these.
How to record
Here it
a
is,
Zoom
right here.
meeting.
1960, the first VR head-mounted display. And it's shiny.
I don't know that guy. Who's that guy? Morton.
Morton Helligs. The Telesphere mask. Did not have any motion tracking, but it actually was stereoscopic. So some of the history before that was this, you know, sort of predictions of VR, but these weren't really VR, but they were heading, you know, getting up to it. You know, stereoscopic photos and viewers were around since 1838. And then they had these really nifty machines that you stick your head in. And then this was the picture.
Oh, really? Was that one of Sutherland's things? Cool.
Yeah, that was a picture that I put for this event, was from that 1965. So
And it did video.
yeah, and it had 3D sound. It even had tactile feedback.
Cool.
He was going all out with VR. So he's a much more, Sutherland is a much more well-known name in the VR
Ivan's
space.
a god.
Yeah. So then obviously, oh, I'm sorry, it was I apologize. It was actually the 1968. It was still
Bob
him.
Rule. Okay.
This is that picture.
Yeah.
Not the exact picture, but it's the same device that he created in 1968. So it's the sword picture that I had.
Gosh, I'm trying to remember what Bob Spruill's famous for, but like a famous book or something.
Yeah. So this artificial reality. So before it was known as virtual reality, it was actually called artificial reality. In '94, when I first picked up my book for Garage Virtual Reality, I was reading it kind of on my lunch break at work, and I had someone from the graphics team say, you know, that before they called it virtual reality, it was artificial reality. And I was like, what? And he brought me this book. I want to say it was probably around this time frame of 1969. And it did talk about the glow flow and all that. But it was just all this kind of psychedelic real world spaces. They had this, what they call the cave system. So they used just a bunch of LED lights in a cave that you'd walk into. And so they were just more like surreal experiences, not necessarily head mounted displays. And then we go in, you know, through the 70s, obviously technology's getting more advanced through the 80s. Not a lot of pictures there. NASA got heavy into VR.
There's the guy I was talking about.
Yeah, Lanier.
Lanier.
Then 90s. So 91 was actually the first. So I was taking a 3D graphics course in 1991, and the professor was talking about artificial reality and his experience in artificial reality. And I became really intrigued. He was talking about how he'd put a head-mounted display on, and he'd use his fingers to simulate lobster legs. And so he was actually moving his fingers like this to walk forward in virtual reality as a virtual lobster. So his avatar was a first person perspective of a lobster. But he said it was so immersive, he felt like he really was the lobster, which was kind of interesting. But I became really curious about that. And then, you start seeing the VR movies come out. The Lawnmower Man was one of them. Of course, the sci-fi movies never are all that believable because it's, you're in some suspension suit and, in VR, they're hitting each other and stuff. But like, how is that possible? They're just suspended in the air without any kind of force feedback system. And then 93. Did anyone have this? I did not.
It never released. The frame rate was so low that everybody got sick.
Yeah. So that was sort of this experience. I don't know if you guys in the 90s ever tried like VR. They'd have like for $1 or $5, you can try VR in the mall. kind of experience?
No.
So this was before I went to Disney, and I would try, I was all excited because I'd see, my professor was talking about how cool VR was in 91, and then, I'd be watching all these movies. And so I want to say it was around 93 that I got to try VR for the first time, and it was in a mall. And you'd put this huge monstrous thing on your head, and it was like the picture was just teeny tiny and way out there, so you felt like you were just looking down a sniper rifle, and it was not immersive at all. Very low frame rates. It was actually a huge letdown, so I was thinking, okay, maybe this VR isn't really all that cool. And then I'm gonna jump to 1994, because in 1994 I went to Disney World, and I experienced this at Epcot. I'm just gonna play a little bit of it.
You go that way, and I'll go this way. And don't be a ball.
Are you guys able to hear the audio? I don't remember if I clicked on the audio.
I can hear audio.
We'll start out listening to the
So
audio.
basically, this was a magic carpet ride through the city of Aladdin. They had 4 different VR stations, and it was incredibly immersive. When I went in there, it was like, wow, I am in the city of Aladdin, in this cartoon land, and I can look around, and I'm on this fun carpet. And so I was really interested at that point, and so I got to talk to one of the engineers afterwards, and I asked him, what kind of system are you using to run this? And he said, it's basically a system that each one of the 4 stations, they spent $1.5 million on it. And each system had the power of like 2,000 Pentiums. And so then I was like, okay, I can build this at home. But then that same year, I ended up finding that Garage Virtual Reality book that I had mentioned before. I'm gonna turn off my. I'm gonna stop sharing here. I'm gonna turn off my background. I can show you the book. Turn off my background. Okay. So, let me just grab my laptop and I can show you. I actually bought 2 different books in 1994 for virtual reality. Just bring it down here. So the first one is this virtual reality construction kit. This one actually, it was good, and it did have some software, but it wasn't as good as this one. I don't know if you guys have seen any of these books. So this is Garage Virtual Reality. And what it was inspiring me to do is just try to build, they had like all these plans for like, here's how you hack a Nintendo Power Glove so that you can have hands in virtual reality. And then they have, all these, here's how you build your own head-mounted display. Of course, very complex graphics. But you can see it's suspended. Obviously not very artistic, but the explanations of how to construct things, this is how to basically build, like on this page, you take 3 potentiometers and you can hook them up using wooden dowels to basically create, it's step-by-step how to create basically a 3 degrees of freedom tracker for the head. And it's just a mechanical tracker. And so basically what I did, and I can show you what I built. So this I built, it was kind of in the 1994 and 1995 time frame. I had to suspend it from the ceiling fan even back in 1994 because it was just so incredibly heavy. Actually, shoot, I just realized this is falling apart. What I did is I took a plastic welder's helmet, and I also took a basically, those those lamps that you can, or basically it's a big magnifier that with a light around it that you can, it had a stand, or it had an arm that you could clamp onto a table. So I did have, before it fell apart and broke, I did have these pipes. So I had this plastic tubing set up in such a way that it was suspended by that arm that the magnifying glass was used. So this is a monoscopic head-mounted display. And the idea was, you just, I don't know if you can still hear me, but put it on. And then right in front of here, I'd put a screen. So the box part of it, I've got on the floor because it's all falling apart, but I've got it down here. So this is the box unit. And all I did is I took plexiglass and I duct taped it all together. And actually just tonight I re-duct taped it because it was all, the duct tape is now 25 years old. But this, hopefully you can see, basically I just would take this and I'd use these big rubber bands to hold it in place. And then basically on the inside, this is just a laptop screen. That was a VGA laptop screen that I never got working. I was partnering with a coworker that I was using like an orange EGA monochrome screen that I did have working with it. So since I only had orange and black as my colors, I just built in software, a wireframe 3D graphics. But I was surprised that even though I was just using wireframe graphics, there's something to be said about if you can do it really, really fast, it's still fairly immersive. It's when, and also even with the monoscopic display, I still had a pretty good field of view. It definitely wasn't anywhere near what Disney could do, but I'd say it was more immersive than what I was experiencing at the mall. You can see this is this is totally falling apart, but this is sort of what's left over of, you can see how I've got the potentiometer through this piece of wood. And so the idea is I'd have, like, they were longer pieces of wood, but I'd have them set up so that, this potentiometer was this way, and then it would be connected to a wood structure so that another one would be this way, and then another one would be this way. So you get that yaw, pitch, and roll. This is all that's left of the clamp that, was on that original lamp. So I had it not only suspended from the ceiling fan, but I also had it clamped onto a desk because the whole thing weighed so much. And I found that when I was using it, a lot of the weight was lifted off because of the suspenders. But when I turned my head, it was kind of hard to turn my head, and there was, momentum that, it would want to keep going whenever I turned too quick. So the other thing I later did in about 7 years later in 2002, I started experimenting with, and I couldn't find them. I was trying to find them, but basically I was trying to build some VR gloves, or I was starting to. I got as far as building a VR finger, but basically I was doing the same potentiometer trick with much smaller potentiometers and wooden dowels. And I just had a finger, and I wish I could find it, but I had these, they were like rectangular pieces of metal that would slide so that, you could still flex, and they'd, it would go with the potentiometer joint. And then I hooked all of those up with, so in 2002, I got these, which are from, they look like memory modules, but this is a full computer that Dallas Semiconductor created. It's programmable in Java. and you can connect it to the internet, and you can connect it to like a serial port. And through that, you know, I just had like a little breadboard that I would hook up some other circuits so that I could get the potentiometer readings from. This is the actual, so this is another one of those computers that's in a board that allows you to get the internet access and the serial port access. So they actually, I just requested, and I got these for free. I just asked for some samples so that I could experiment, and they were cool about just sending them out to me.
What year was that?
2002. So I was trying to look at ways to kind of enhance my experience. Like I said, I only got as far as getting one finger working, and then it was like, okay, I got that. You know, do I really want to go through the effort of doing that, you know, 9 more times? So, then let's see, I want to say it was 8 years later, I decided I wanted to try my hand at doing something a little different. And I'll show you what I got. So this is my second attempt to build my own head-mounted display. But basically, what I did is you know, and I can't move it because, again, this all fell apart. But basically what this is it's a motorcycle helmet. And what I did is I spray painted the inside of the visor like an opaque white. But even though it's opaque white, you can actually see the screen coming through the front of it. It's a lot brighter on the inside. I'm gonna, without touching it, because if I touch it, it's gonna mess everything up. But you can see through, let's see if I can get the camera lined up. It's a lot brighter on the inside looking through one of these holes. But the nice thing about using these little laser pico projectors is they're always in focus, even on a curved surface like this. So I didn't have to worry about the clarity of the display. And it was very bright. You know, it's hard to, maybe if I turn off some of these lights, it's a little easier to see, but didn't have any issues with the brightness of it at all. But again, monoscopic, and what I was originally planning on doing is, I can kind of take this apart to show you. So right now, this is the laser pico projector, and it's attached, you know, to just a standard VGA connector. And I did do a little bit of experimenting with trying to angle on the inside, see if I could use like a curved mirror to make the field of view a little bit wider. Then I experimented with some different lenses. But the idea of what I was trying to do was basically, if you look at the inside of this motorcycle helmet, I took all of the padding out from the inside so that I could put my head as far in the back as possible to keep the distance between my eyes and the screen at a comfortable distance. So it wasn't very comfortable without the padding, but it was functional. And as far as tracking went, you know, this was around 2010 that I built this. So I had access to, you know, smartphones and stuff that I could use tracking for that purposes. I never got it completely, sort of like the other one. I never, you know, at least with the gloves, I never got it completely working. But the proof of concept was I was pretty happy with. So, okay, I think that's all I had to show. I guess what I'd like to do is mention is when I got into the Oculus Development Kit 1 in 2013, that was sort of what made me obviously stop working on the helmet concept, because I believe it was Matt Summers. Is Matt on? I know he said he was going to be on. So he had invited us to try his development kit 1, and I thought, okay, I'll try it just because I'm hearing all this hype about Oculus Rift, and I was thinking I was going to go there and it was going to be just another mall experience where, you know, it was just a lot of hype. But when I tried the Oculus Development Kit 1, I want to say that experience was even more immersive than the 1994 1.5 million Disney experience. So, you know, at that point I was hooked. So I was like, okay, now I'm back into VR, and of course then got the DK2 and all that. I haven't, since 2010, I haven't really done much with hardware, because I feel like, you know, the stuff with the VR is other companies are doing such a good job at that. So that's about it for me. Does anyone have any questions before we move on to Zach?
I got 2 questions.
Sure.
One is that the Disney one, do we
Yeah.
know what is at the end of that long pointy nose? Why is it so? I wondered that when I tried it in like 98.
So I was asking, I do remember that I was asking them about the field of view and why they couldn't make it even larger than it was. Not that I was disappointed, because compared to the mall experience, the field of view was so much better, but it was still like, I don't remember what the field of view was, but it wasn't as immersive as I would have liked. Mm-hmm. And their answer was they had to reduce the field of view because of motion sickness. So I think they were experiencing, or I should say simulation sickness. They were experiencing a lot of what people experience with the DK1, and even now today. I don't really know what their setup is hardware-wise, but that's a good question. Does anyone
else? It was a CRT, so I think there's kind of a minimum distance you have to do in a CRT.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, certainly in 1994, you know, you already have, with your displays, things tend to stick out the back a little more than they do today. But
so maybe it was the tube.
I think so.
I bet you, though, the other thing with the CRTs, they're quite a bit heavier, and so maybe they had to use like an extra small CRT, and they maybe did something with, you know,
just from
lenses.
the look of it, it's kind of like the CRTs that they were putting in some of the original film cameras, where they're very small film recording cameras. The screens are fairly small, but the tubes are really, really long to get a really accurate sort of deflection. And so that's what it looked like to me. But I mean, just from looking at the photographs, it looks
sense. The thing was heavy and like suspended.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, you said you had 2 questions. What was
yeah?
Question?
What are you doing with VR now?
So right now I'm building an educational title. So I was working with some of my boys. I actually have 2 boys going for computer science degrees right now, and they're big into it as well. So we started with something in Unity, and then we switched to Unreal. But basically it's called Cybot Realms, and the concept is you are these robots that you build things out of like Lego like pieces, you know, to battle each other in kind of this environment. But in order to construct things a certain way, you have to solve math problems. So, or actually, I'm trying to do it in a tangential learning style where you don't have to solve math problems to play the game, but there's a definite advantage to, you know, you can get through things faster if you actually are solving math problems. And then as you get better at solving the math problems, of course, you get, the problems get harder, but then you get more stuff, if that makes sense, or more capabilities. So yeah, that's what I've been working on. That's something that I'm doing on the side. So what I do professionally, I work at 3M. I'm on the 3D graphics team. I'm not doing AR, VR there yet, although there's the possibility of an augmented reality opportunity there. So.
That's cool. That sounds like a fun experience.
Yeah. Yeah, all of it's fun. I'm just having, an amazing time with, everything that's been going on technology-wise and opportunity-wise. Anyone else have any questions before we move on to Zach?
I've got a cough and a question, Tom.
Yep.
Are you recording this?
I am recording this, or I think I was. I'm trying to see where my controls are for that.
That says you are. I have to leave for a short amount of time, and I was hoping maybe I could watch the recording.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can make this available through the Meetup. So.
I'm planning on being at the end of the meeting, so I'll talk to you then.
Sounds good. Okay, thanks,
Enjoy
Scott. Yep. So for people that don't know, I guess we should have, if you had time, I should have had Scott give a plug on this. But tomorrow is the Minnesota Electronic Theater event that he does annually, so it's a pretty big deal. I remember one of my first ones that I did with that. They had a presenter who had just worked on the Transformers movie, actually showing off how they created, the robots and all the pieces that were moving, and it was very interesting. So I highly recommend that. That's tomorrow. I don't know, Zach, do we have a link for that? Or?
Yeah, let me, I'll turn my sharing on because I'm going.
It's just minnesotaelectronictheater.org.
Yeah, so if anyone is interested in that, I'm assuming this year it's probably all online, right?
Yep.
And so that's tomorrow. And then Zach, you're going to talk about the other social.
Yeah.
Let me just give a brief introduction for people that does everyone here know Zach? I'll give a brief introduction for him. Actually, I'll do that for each person.
So you guys don't get to see my video. Just focus in on this here. This is me.
Okay. Actually, Zach, I'm sorry. I was gonna go switch to your bio and whatnot. Maybe you could just introduce yourself. I apologize.
Yeah, that's fine.
I dropped the ball on that one.
No worries. Yeah, we got a lot of moving parts today. So hey, I'm Zach. Most people know me because I run the different VR meetup and collaborate with Tom every few months, usually. But the one I work on is called Minnesota MNVR and HCI, Human Computer Interaction. We do VR and AR pretty much exclusively these days, but leading up to 2016, there was a whole lot of other things going on, and that's how a lot of us met, was through various ones of those meetings. I'm not running video because between my entire house here, my upload speed maximum is less than 1 megabyte a second, 786. So that's if everybody else leaves the house and there's no devices in the house using any bandwidth. So I'm just going to focus on my voice and some stills and a couple short YouTubes, and just kind of interrupt me at any time. If things start to sound weird, I can call in on my phone. I got it here on standby.
You started with the hilarious picture. I just love how you match match those up.
Yeah, and then so I started hosting the meetups in 2013, the year Tom said, when the Oculus dev kit first shipped. And prior to that, I had organized the International Game Developers Association Twin Cities meetings that Marty now runs, and he's speaking later. And the upcoming events, we've got just kind of a joint social here that's coming up next Wednesday. And it's going to be inside Rec Room, which if you've been there in the past, you were screamed at by small children. This is different. This is a private space, invite only kind of a thing. And it's a free kind of social and gaming space, and it's got a lot of platform support, including non-VR these days. They had to make their investors happy. So there's Marty, how was the iOS version? You didn't say much about that.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty easy to navigate around in it anyway. It's kind of like, I mean, the weird thing is that it's like on-screen controls. So you're holding your phone and, you got like a little virtual joystick that you move around with. But then you also have little virtual joysticks for both your hands.
Interesting.
It's odd. But the neat I guess the kind of neat thing is that it acts just like being in VR, and that you hear the audio is just like a pass through. It's like being on a call or something.
Yep. And if you're interested in going to this, this link is too long and tedious to put in. Just Google for IGDA-TC or IGDA-TC Eventbrite. It'll get you right here. And then Scott's thing, the Minnesota Electronic Theater, is tomorrow. And there'll be a live stream on YouTube with kind of a chat window and stuff. Looks like Twitch. There's also going to be an experimental VR viewing of that in Mozilla Hubs.
Cool.
And just to set expectations, it might work very well for you, or it might not work for you at all, or it might work for some period of time for you.
Yeah.
And then you can go over to YouTube. But with a lot of these platforms, it's just kind of varies how they scale and how different devices work in there. Mozilla in particular tries to support everything, everybody and everything.
Yeah.
And it runs inside a browser.
It definitely, so Mozilla Hubs definitely runs better on a PC or in a VR headset than it does on a mobile device. We tried to do a separate mobile device session, and it was very, very iffy. So I highly recommend either joining by a PC. It's nice because it's just a link that you click on. You don't have to install anything. Yeah,
and any Chrome or Firefox that's modern, or your Oculus browser on your Quest, you just put in the URL and type in the room code, and you're there. So okay, I'll get started on my talk. I'll go kind of fast, so just interrupt me when you want to hear more or have questions. It's interesting looking backwards. So I started just doing all this for fun in 2013. And then started doing it professionally first in 2015, and then it really ramped up in 2016. And it's a little sad how the projects got shorter and shorter, and pretty soon they're weekends only, and then pretty soon they're a weekend every couple of weeks. So it's kind of fun to look very far back and see these things that I would work on for weeks at a time. But I don't have anything super fancy in terms of slide deck. Oh, and I should say too, so I'm a software guy. I wish I was hardware, but not enough to actually learn electronics. And this odd stuff that we're going to see is what I did for kind of research and experimentation and just to experience for myself, since you can't go anywhere and do this stuff. The stuff I did professionally was bog standard HoloLens, Oculus headset, Quest now, and some of the other mobile ones with none of the special hardware involved. So it's very separate world from the kind of the professional gigs and the reliability that everybody wants to use to onboard their users and keep everything nice and seamless. So let's see, you can probably kill these guys off. And actually just working backwards here, things really started first with the first Connect that shipped for the Xbox 360. I won't talk about this stuff, but it's just fun to see. Those are infrared views. Yeah, of the pattern dots, and you'll see these kids get a lot taller. At this point, most of them are taller than me. Some work on the original Surface when it was a table-sized thing for interactive haunted house thing.
Quick question on the Kinect, because I was experimenting with that too. Did you was that the first Kinect sensor with the Xbox 360? Okay. Yep. Not the Kinect 2 that came with the Xbox One.
Yep, and I have some Kinect 2s. Those were just a lot less fun to work with because they required so much GPU power to do their work.
The other limitation with the Kinect 2 is you can only hook up one to a PC, whereas the Kinect
one per
you could have
PC.
both of them.
Yeah. And they because they're time of flight, instead of those pattern dots, they things would jitter around. They weren't stable and fun to look at, the depth map. So you had to do all this fancy filtering, and that added latency, and it was kind of a letdown.
That's cool. I didn't realize that you were doing Kinect development as well.
Yep.
You are going to explain that funny picture at some point, right?
What, this?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Okay.
So actually, let's kind of go sequentially. So the first Oculus dev kit looked like this. It reminds me of your stuff. It's a screen, and it's got attached to your face. That's secondary.
Mine's a lot bigger though.
Yeah.
And bigger isn't better. So.
And when this shipped in 2013, there was no tracking at all. You could just rotate your head. That was it. Right next to it is a Razer Hydra. If you've never used one of those, By the time Oculus shipped, the Razer Hydra was at that point a failed 6-DoF controller for PC games on clearance. And because I got my DK1 in the first wave, I got to go out and buy a Razer Hydra when they were like $40 on Amazon. And within weeks, they're like $70 on Amazon, and then $90, and it just kept going because they were the only good thing to use for 6-DoF positional tracking in VR. And once the word got out, people just had to buy one to put on their VR experience. So since your head was rotation only, some of the things would be to just rubber band one of these guys to the side of your headset, and then suddenly you have position tracking and just one hand instead of two. Getting back to my thing, this is the next headset, but if you place that base station, that magnetic emitter on the headset, now you've got hands relative to your head. And this is the Oculus DK2, which had positional tracking. So by doing this terrible thing to yourself, you essentially had the functionality of a Vive, but not anything like the accuracy and obviously not the comfort. That base station weighed more than the headset. So you'd have like you'd have kind of a gouge in your nose after 5 or 10 minutes. But, there isn't a lot to say about the DK1. We were all just barely getting things working, barely getting it running, and then trying not to feel sick while it happened. If I can get to my tabs here, I do have, I think this is the second MNVR meetup. So what we're looking at there, you can see the Hydra in his hand. Let me try to get an unblurred frame. Hydra controller in his hand, base station on the desk, so he had to do calibration. What's not obvious is he's got a fanny pack strapped to his chest with the other Hydra inside, and that was serving as a body tracker. So his head was rotating on top of his tracked body position. So you can duck and lean and already do all this kind of stuff. And it was fun too, because nobody had ever done this ever. So they would, see a crate in front of them, and then they'd put their hand on it to lean and then fall on the floor because it wasn't real. And then everybody would feel sick after they were done. And when they recovered, they want to do it again. Wow. The tracking on those Hydras was really sketchy, not reproducible, not accurate. And because it's magnetic, you'd get these distortions in space, especially around, like the VR headset. I'll just cue these up and not really talk about them in detail, but this is the kind of stuff I was building back then. And this is 3D scan geometry. Like that's one of those overpriced flight control joysticks, and that's my desk and monitors. And by looking at your hands, you'd get the sense that those are your arms, but they were not one-to-one with your hands. They were in certain places, depending on how much metal and wiring and electricity was around you. But there literally was nothing better at almost any price, which is kind of sad.
So this was one of the experiences that you developed?
Yep. Yeah. And cool. Everything was kind of done to scale and playing with scale and shrinking and growing yourself. And you can see all that terrible geometry that's from the 3D scanning. And essentially that monitor is acting like a mirror. I'll just skip ahead here. There's
Was the 3D scanning using the Kinect? Did you do Kinect Fusion?
That would not hold together that well. So that was actually done with the occipital sensor, which was essentially a Kinect One strapped to an iPad. And that company's still around. Yeah. Right. And they've pivoted to software now only. Software only now that the LiDAR iPads have come out.
Okay.
But this is a little more.
That's not true, actually.
What?
They still sell a sensor.
Well, who would buy it?
Better. Yeah. It's better for, actually, I think it probably is better for close-up scanning. Okay. So LiDAR is not great shorter than like 6 feet away, I guess. Whereas they're kind of re-emphasizing that their scanner is great, like, a foot away or whatever. So you can scan things that are tabletop size. Whereas I think the LiDAR does better with like room scale, like a full, 3D scan of a room.
Okay.
But yeah, they still sell the sensor on their website.
Weird. It is literally a Kinect One in a new, smaller box.
Yeah.
But they're super smart. They're so far ahead of the curve in terms of shipping anything that people could buy. And it produced a lot better geometry than Google Tango ever did, even in its final days. It was pretty nice. I see a tripod hiding back to the left here. So this was an Oculus DK2 with the Hydras. And it looks like I got a nicer GPU by this point. Got a little more resolution on these pictures. That is networked to Shane, who lived in Colorado at that point, maybe.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, this is back when you had to audition to be allowed to go to Oculus Connect. This is the one that got me in because I had networked body and hands and stuff. And my big project was we're going to do networked sword fighting. And me never having done networking and latency compensation and all that kind of stuff, it's the worst possible thing you could ever try to make networked. There's nothing worse than close-up hand-to-hand combat. There's literally nothing worse.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So after not having good success and just kind of lots of confusing problems, I went and watched a bunch of GDC videos and learned the awful truth. So I gave up on that and just went back to trying to get more body controls in there. This is those Hydras attached to my feet. Remember, they got cords on them. So this is super dangerous in terms of breaking and falling. And the joysticks are controlling my arms.
That's
so
cool.
they were not accurate. You could do very much thriller dances, and that was about it.
Do you have any pictures of it strapped to your feet?
I don't.
Okay.
I'm sort of lucky I have this much documentation.
Yeah.
I'm super bad about that. I wish I could do that better. Let's skip ahead here. And I don't know what this was. This is more foot tracking, it says. I'm not sure what's different. Oh yeah, I was trying to do a swimming thing. Like
Cool.
you can get a lot of details, just super dangerous, and then you have to give up your arms. So in the end, it's probably not worth it. And I don't even know what the point of this is, but I thought it was fun to animate a T-Rex with really bad skinning. I'm not an artist, obviously.
It's got the tiny arms.
Yep, exactly. I think that was fun about it in VR. You're like having different length limbs and things like that.
Yeah.
Is a big deal. So, not too much more to say about the Hydra. It did feature heavily in one of the better global game jam things, but again, because of the calibration problems. Whoops, where is it? Back. So has everybody seen the rubber hand illusion stuff? Is that ringing any bells for anybody? In a nutshell, if somebody shows you an arm, it's plausibly sitting in a position where your arm could be, and then hides your real arm, and then simply what they do in the physical version is they touch this rubber arm with a paintbrush while they touch your real arm with a paintbrush synchronized. You feel it on your nerves and on your skin, and you see it on this rubber arm, and within a matter of like 10 seconds, your body takes ownership of that rubber arm. And then the big punchline is they whip out a mallet and they hammer your arm, and you either fly backwards in flight mode or you stand up getting ready to punch them in the face in fight mode. Like it's really neat. You can Google rubber hand illusion on YouTube. Is probably the most popular one. So the same thing in VR is even better. And it was actually part of 2 projects that year. That was a big year. We did a thing with there's the Hydras. We did VR wood chipper oops, which is a really good name. And essentially we would put people into VR. We would put a Hydra on a paintbrush, and so it would be tracked and they could see it and feel it, and we do the exact same thing. Then we turn it into a meat cleaver and chop their fingertips off, and you get the reaction pretty often. But it all depended on the calibration. The Hydras were awful, so it got wrecked a lot. That same year we also used a mocap suit because we're very ambitious, I guess.
So did people actually experience pain putting their...
No, you react before
Okay.
It's one of these
I guess I didn't ask the question very well. Like, if you got something chopped off, did people actually sense, even though they knew it was fake?
You get the reaction, and then you notice that you don't feel anything, and then you're just kind of confused for a second.
Okay.
Because your brain's like, yeah, oh, we're injured. Oh, wait, we're not injured, and then you're just like muddled there, and it's funny for everybody watching.
Very cool.
But that was kind of the end of the Hydras, thank God. And then that same company was going to ship a wireless version, and so we all threw our money at it really fast. then they never shipped it. So for the next game jam year, I was forced to do something kind of without hydras. I guess these sequentially are in a different order. So that is the story of what happened this year. But we actually, I guess I got a video of that. So this was just using the DK2 tracking to its fullest extent, which not a lot of people did because they would always mount the camera on the monitor. What are we looking at here? I got to get rid of my zoom windows so I can get rid of my other window. There we go. Video. One of these. Here it is. So the reactions are pretty good. But so this is only the DK2, and if you were exactly, I believe, something like 7 feet back, and then you aimed it just right, you'd get this big player area that was about 6 feet wide, and you could go all the way to the ground. And it was a triangle instead of a nice rectangular area. But this is dwarves in the Hobbit hole throwing plates at you, and you could activate slow motion once in a while with the voice command. By reciting potato, 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 because that was the joke that year. And that was kind of, thankfully, that was the end of the DK2, because then the good hardware came out right at the end of 2015 and 2016. So skip ahead here. I think we're done with this. We'll keep this around for a second. So that's the final run there of the what I ended up calling Hydra Head. And this was Victory Beard, Wolverine Victory Beard, because you can see the claws there on the screen back there. That's the extent. That's some of the best art I've ever made. I didn't make the hands, but I put the claws inside the hands, and then I made the boxes and stacked them up.
Cool.
Really, and likewise, I obviously didn't make this robot or this sword or anything that looks good. That would involve me. So the Vive came out, and it had all this wonderful tracking and hand controllers, and everything was great. And actually, Marty loaned me his pre-release Vive for a little while, right before the final thing shipped. And I was very careful with it. I treated it very gentle. It never went outside like this, Marty, never once. And then my Vive arrived, and the next weekend, I had extension cables, and it was on the swing set, it was on the trampoline, and doing that kind of stuff. The Vive's really unique in that it has external tracking, and it's really robust, and it can cover wide areas. This little box, I don't know if can you see my mouse cursor?
Yep.
Okay, so this little box has a spinning rotor that just sprays infrared, essentially laser fans, and then the timing on these little dots on the headset and the controllers and stuff is computed back into an angle. And Lighthouse, they call it Lighthouse because it's a similar algorithm they used to use for ships to find their bearing back to known lighthouses on land. So we were doing VR swing set over a giant pit of fire, all kinds of different things. There's the trampoline. And then eventually moving on to foot tracking because hands wasn't enough. And
you skipped right by the trampoline. That was the one I wanted to hear more about.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, so it's kind of like you picture it. So you put the reference point you put outside the trampoline so it doesn't wiggle.
Yeah.
And you get in there, and my first theory was I'm gonna get totally sick. This is gonna be awful. And it wasn't. It was like being on a trampoline, except you can't really see that much unless you built the graphics for it. The interesting parts were put somebody light like that on the trampoline, and kind of does what you expect. Put somebody heavy like me on the trampoline, and all of a sudden your floor drops, inches below where you calibrated the floor to be. And you get a sense of fear at first, but after a week or so, you can differentiate between VR and real life. And then at that point, you load up the most realistic cliff demo in the world, and you're jumping on the trampoline and jumping off the edge of the cliff, and you don't feel anything. The one interesting part was if you're bouncing up and down over ground, like just say a flat surface, the interesting part was if you look down, you'd start to feel funny. And if you'd look at the horizon, you wouldn't feel anything. And just jumping up and down, focusing on that, eventually I noticed that if I'm looking down towards the ground as I'm falling, my knees would lock and unlock and lock and unlock unconsciously. And it turns out it's because you can't judge closing distance to hit that ground and either, you know, stiff leg it or bend your knees and roll, because you don't have any feet. You don't know when you're going to hit it. And that's a subconscious thing, I guess. Not that you can really find documentation of that, but through experimentation, it turns out you start tracking your feet and put little white boxes there. They don't have to look like feet. And then suddenly that goes away. So that was really interesting kind of stuff.
So did you do foot tracking in combination with the trampoline or no?
So yeah, that's where it starts to get tricky. Here's what that starts to look like. Where's a good picture? There's Matt Summers, who we mentioned earlier. With Vive, you get 2 wireless controllers, and then you can hook up as many wired things as you want as well. So what's actually going on is Matt's got some USB cords going up his sleeves, back into the back of the headset. And then in this one, he doesn't have foot tracking turned on, but here's one with both. You can see the wireless on the feet so you don't trip and die, and then wired kind of going up your sleeves to the back of the headset. And there kind of isn't a limit. We've put together as many as we could find at the time, and built this, and Reddit was really impressed to see this picture here. But Vive was really made very hackable. There's an extra USB port. You can stick a hub in it and then run a bunch of devices off of it. And of course, you get a big tangle of wires, so you don't actually do that. So what this ended up being was, I can show a video of this. This was some demo that they'd built at Pixel Farm for playing tennis on the moon, and we just made the tennis balls large, so it was soccer on the moon. And what ended up being the most fun was you standing here without a headset and torturing the VR person by throwing things at them.
Yeah.
And we can do a quick video of that. Right, probably this one. Yeah, there we go. It's a good video. So there's their professional artwork, and then we just kind of smashed it all together and made something stupid out of it in a couple hours. I'm surprised we didn't put a hole in the wall, actually.
Yeah.
And I guess, yeah, well, we got that there. That's Matt also bought the Neuron suit. This is the first time we got that working. That was a great way to wreck your expectations forever and ever on a body immersion. You put this thing on, you calibrate it for 20 minutes, and then you have this amazing experience that you don't ever experience again for many years. And you just use these stupid VR controllers. But anyway, I'll keep rolling here. So eventually these Vive trackers shipped, and you go from these controllers they're nice as controllers, they're a little big, to this thing that's pretty small and fits on your dog or fits on the back of your hand. And they do most of what the controllers do in terms of tracking. You'd have to build in your own buttons. They have actual pins underneath to help you do that. But again, me not being a hardware guy, I just started doing the most I can really do, which is attach them to everything I could think of. And
I'm trying to understand what that's a picture of that you're holding. Is that a football?
Yep. So that's a football with a Vive tracker inside.
Okay. Very cool.
And this was totally stolen off of a guy on Twitter that named Aldous. Let me see. I got that picture up here somewhere, so I wanted to share that. He made this amazing thing on a 3D printer. You paying attention, Paul? And he did this amazing experiment where he'd get somebody to throw this to him, and then in VR, as soon as it started moving, you can compute the trajectory and exactly where it's going to go. So as soon as it was released in VR, you'd see this line drawn of exactly where it was going to end up.
Oh,
and
wow.
he'd place his hand there, and then the ball would just come to his hand. So he was kind of working with how can tracking in VR, give you superpowers, kind of a thing.
That is cool.
Yeah. Mine wasn't anything like that. Mine did not work like that because these were semi-translucent, so you'd get distortions and weirdness, and you'd see these wobbles as it came through the air, separate from the mechanical wobbles of having this, inside a lighter object. But still, it was pretty neat from the fact that, you touch all these things in VR and you never feel any of them. So to actually experience, say having something come to you and then you grab it and you feel it, it's kind of a big eye-opening moment.
Yeah.
But that one ended up being not practical. This hand mount worked really well and got used for a lot of stuff. Looking at the other ones here that we've got in front of us. So the other beautiful thing about the tracker is it's got a standard like 1/4 inch camera mount, 1/4 inch bolt. So you can buy these GoPro things, which is what this blue thing is, or these clips. You know, you can get 20 different stupid GoPro things from Amazon for $10 or whatever, and see which ones are worth using. And then you can also just go to the hardware store and buy a bunch of 1/4 inch bolts of different lengths and just start drilling through all the stuff in your house and attaching trackers to it. So this is actually a money clip. That was one of the big surprises. Whoops. So that works really nice, like on, you know, on your pants, on your waist, on your jeans or whatever, and a couple other things like that. But for the most part, what you'd expect is what worked well. Something like this for your hands or feet. It's a really great way to do a low latency tracking of a screen, and then you can just pipe, you know, the VR video to that, and it's like you've got a little viewfinder into the virtual world. And this gun was a controller from the Xbox 360 that was convenient because I had all the triggers and it was very easy to use in software. And probably the most ambitious one was trying to do more with like body tracking. One of the problems you'll have is you take this tracker, which has a lithium battery in it, so pretty dense, pretty weighty, and then you put it up on a little post so that it doesn't get occluded by your clothes or by your body or whatever. And it would start to wobble around as you'd move. You have to filter that out in software. But if you can strap it a little tighter to your body or with a rigid object, you get rid of some of that wobble. This is a set of BMX, they call it BMX armor, that just drilled through and mounted trackers at different points. And the whole goal of this particular one was trying to figure out how to track your shoulder clavicle motion, which if you've ever done VR body stuff, it's always super wrong. And the developers just give up and let your arms stretch. And it looks really stupid when you see your own arm stretching because they don't know where your shoulder is.
So how many total trackers on the body?
So at this point, I only had 3. I was just trying to figure out like an arm. Yeah. At this point in my house, I think there's 6. So plus controllers, plus the headset is a lot. Oh, this is another really fast. This is another project. I don't think I have video of this, but I wish I had video of this. Somewhere there's a super awesome picture of Paul swinging this sword like there's no tomorrow. But that year it was, we're going to use the trackers and we're going to put them on this wooden katana sword. And then somehow we're not going to destroy the entire room. And it went basically well. We replaced it with a foam sword when we did the demo night after that game jam. But that's where it really shines, is when you have props, and especially rigid props. So anything that's not going to let the tracker wobble around is where you get that nice feedback. And this wooden sword had all the weight of a real sword, so suddenly you get momentum and stuff that you've always been missing in your VR video games. And
you didn't attempt to do like a multiplayer with that, did you?
No.
Could have been dangerous.
We put a big swath around the player playing it and told everybody that is at their own risk.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of it. I just want to cover a few things on the trackers here. Let me go back to so if you're interested in this kind of stuff, tracking different kinds of objects, animals.
Yeah, was the animal one, was that primarily just so you're aware of where your dog is when you're in VR, or what was that about?
Yeah, I basically attached to anything I could think of that would work. So this isn't even my dog. I've got a bigger dog, and she just will not let anything sit on her head. Kind of the findings are, if you're tracking just the body, it's not better for much more than, just the dog is nearby. You don't get any sense of the personality. You don't get any sense of the motion. You pretty much need something on the front shoulders, something on the head, and probably something on the butt, kind of depending on how long your dog's legs are, to get the sense of that's a dog. But it was more just like, oh, this is awesome. Let's see what we can do with this. And in terms of what's actual effective, it's just kind of various clips. It was really great to attach it to a phone Now we've got AR Core and AR Kit that do that all with software and cameras. You probably don't need to do that anymore. And then any kind of controller that is rigid, especially, is where it really shines. And the one that gets used by a lot of people is just you put them on your feet, put them on your belt, and you do 6-point body tracking for like VR chat. It's probably the most used. But yeah, if you're interested in that stuff, you want to get a Vive, and you can't really do anything like that with the Quest or with the Oculus headsets for PC. They said they were gonna, and then they never shipped anything. But if you want kind of the best convenience and honestly the best value, you just buy an Oculus Quest and work with that. Let me see real quick. There's anything I wanted to cover here. Oh yeah, so the in terms of the devices themselves, they have these great documents. You can go look them up online. One thing you want to be aware of is there's 2 versions of this tracking technology. They call it Lighthouse and Lighthouse 2.0. And if you buy a tracker or a controller for 2.0, it'll work with both sets of those laser emitters that they call base stations. If you buy the new base stations, then you're forced to buy the new controllers, but it'd be hard to get in that situation. It's more when you go buy secondhand hardware, like some guy's old trackers off of eBay. If you have the new headset, you just want to make sure you get the new trackers, because there's backwards compatibility from the new hardware to the old, but there's no forwards compatibility. And it's super obvious. They started coloring their controllers and these trackers with blue for the newer versions. But they have these documents that are designed to help you attach it to things. Like they had big plans for this. I don't know if it really took off anywhere, unfortunately. They have ways to stabilize the orientation, and they have these pins on the bottom, which I thought I saw a diagram of. There. To make it really convenient to build circuits. Not convenient enough for me, but Paul would say it's super convenient. You just have to close a circuit between kind of one of the drive pins and one of these other sensor pins, and suddenly you've got a button press showing up on the PC, like as if a controller was there. So you can make your own switch, your own trigger, or whatever, very simply.
I was very interested in the trackers, but there were 2 main reasons I didn't ever invest in any. One was the price, and the other was the size. I would have been nice if there was some way to make them a little smaller.
Yeah, it seems like that's almost the minimum. You do need some spacing between those dots to make the algorithm work. We got Matt's feet in here somewhere. I don't remember where that went. Because yeah, they're not as small as you would. Well, this is a pretty good example too. They're not as small as you would want. And if you put them on the back of your hands, they're not going to get occluded by much. If you put them on your feet, they're likely to get occluded by your pants a lot of times. So you stick them up a little bit and then they start to wobble, and you have to filter that out in software. Yeah, they're not ideal. There's not much better that you can afford to buy, unfortunately. And I don't know when there will be.
Yeah.
Like with the Oculus Quest, you can put those controllers on your feet, but again, you don't get 4 controllers, so you can only have 2. And that's the distance where they start to lose visual tracking, is anything beyond arm reach. They didn't optimize for that because it doesn't make sense to. And so once they're on your feet, if you look away from them, you lose positional tracking. And if you look back, it might not reacquire until you bend over a little bit to get a little closer to them. So there really isn't anything like this, but it's got really these limited use cases that you'd want to do it. Let me just double check this. I think I took up plenty of time here. So any questions on any of this stuff? Oh yeah, so I think I said this. So GoPro mounts all work, and anything, you spend literally like 20 cents at the hardware store, and you can mount it to anything in your house. In terms of numbers that are supported, in theory, you can have 16 devices in a Lighthouse, what they call a constellation, but you'll be limited by radio interference well before that happens. And there's ways to mitigate that. I would say, just if you are going to go after something like this, just shoot me a note and ask questions. But compared to the controllers, they have slightly worse tracking. And I think that's because they're smaller and they have less of those sensor dots on them, less of those photodiodes. They take more IR interference, and in particular from Leap Motion hand tracking cameras, because there's different sensors in the trackers versus the controllers. And I mentioned this a couple of times, you got to filter out physical jiggles in software. That's not a big deal. And certain USB controllers on your laptop or PC might not work well, but probably you'll be able to find one that does work well. And if you got a desktop, you can always add in just a card for a reasonable amount of money. And all these radios, you know, interfere with each other, so you just spread them out. And spread them out kind of away from your other USB ports and any other kind of EMI that you might have on your computer. I had a picture here of the dongle that was pretty good. So this is just a USB hub stuck into the top of the headset. This is enough distance to make them friendly, and I think maybe the angle apart helps too. But the other super important thing is you put numbers on these guys. These are the radio transceivers, and match them to your trackers, because you go absolutely insane once you start pairing them to each other and pairing the radios to each other and pairing two trackers to one radio. I have no idea what's going on, but if you can just do that once and never do it again, you're good to go. You're golden. So if you buy a couple, make sure you just write on them right away.
Like RC plane controllers.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Any random questions?
That was the advice that I didn't get until after I had spent like 20 hours.
Yes, it is literally that long, because the radios compare with two trackers, but only one tracker can pair with a radio, and nobody told you any of this stuff. Yeah, it's a nightmare.
It was a nightmare. I was going to mention, do you know much about Apple tiles?
No.
Have you heard this rumor? So it's all a rumor at this point, but all Apple devices for like the last like 4 or 5 years now have included a chip that I think they call the U1, if I remember right. It's like using microwave frequencies essentially to pinpoint distances between these devices, like to millimeter precision. Yeah. So similar to how the lighthouses work, except that it's not triangulating. It's just like it knows between two devices. So the like Find My iPhone feature is in theory in the future going to use this, and you could potentially like use your watch to like know exactly where your iPhone is, because it'll triangulate using the other devices in your house.
Is that
supposedly
that's something they said later, and then everybody thinks they'll use it for AR?
So Apple hasn't said anything. This is all like rumor speculation, but it's been long enough now in development and stuff that people are pretty certain it's coming. The latest rumor says that they're pushed out as a commercial like thing that you can buy till like March of next year probably.
Okay.
But they're going to compete with essentially like Tile, but Tile are these like little products that you can buy, and then those use Bluetooth. So they're as accurate as Bluetooth. They're not really meant for positional tracking. Whereas these Apple ones, I mean, I think they're going to be like. So the question is whether in software we'll be able to use them for our own uses. But if we can, they have the potential to replace these kind of trackers. They're much smaller, first of all, because the chip is tiny. But the question is whether we'll be able to access the low-level like data.
And they've done some pretty impressive things with just the accelerometers and the earbuds. Probably the combination of the two could get you a pretty good angle and distance, if not exact orientation, I guess.
Yep.
Quick time check here, just letting you know we're 12 minutes over. Martin, I'm hoping that you can do yours really quick, because I want to give plenty of time for Paul.
For sure.
I don't want to rip you off your time, but just letting everyone be aware. I do want to end this at 2 hours.
Yep, I was just going to show this real fast. So if you are stuck working with the Quest, you can still attach controllers to things. They just can't be as far away as your feet. This is how you do an elephant trunk on a Quest with rubber bands and the actual controller cables. So yeah, I'll pass it over to Marty.
Thank you, Zach.
Yep.
And Marty, sorry again. I'm since I'm recording, I can't actually look up your bio again. So,
Oh, no
if
worries.
you don't mind, just give yourself.
I will introduce
Yes,
myself.
thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to show. I'm going to share my screen here. Gotta figure out where to do that. I'm going to do the entire screen because I wanted a quick mention, just for fun. There's a Kickstarter that launched today. It's by the same people that made these like holographic displays. This is actually the Kickstarter homepage. I didn't even have to go find it. They're featured today. It's called the Portrait, and so this is like a little portrait photo sized 3D window. I'll turn this volume off. Anyway, so like just launched today. It's $200 if you like back in the next day. I think it's like there's an early bird, there's an early bird special cost or whatever. So I think it's $200. Little 3D display on your desktop. I got one. We'll see how it goes. You can get they're also there's a level at $1,000 that comes with the newest Kinect and a Magic Leap, Leap Motion, and like a track, I forget what they call it, but like it's like a dolly for like a camera. I don't remember what that's called, but like comes with a desktop sized one of those as well, and they kind of like have software that says like, oh, if you mount your camera on that and then move it over, then they'll create a little photogrammatic 3D scene for you out of that. They sell just the like that track thing, whatever that's called. You know what? I should just scroll down because they talk a little bit about it. For like, you can add it as an add-on for like $200, $300. It's like as much as the display itself. Somewhere on here. There it is. So it's a light field photo rail, they're calling it. But I looked it up, and actually, like, that's not a terrible price. No, it is $300. So it's definitely more than the display. But you can find these things on like Amazon. The range is like either from $40 to, they go way more expensive than this. So I assume that's for like, films and stuff. Anyway, this is kind of a neat thing. And because it's like, significantly cheaper for the first day or so, I thought I'd mention it. Because it'll be $249 once the day is up or whatever. But here's the early bird price is $199. And Looking Glass have done these kind of volumetric displays now for a lot of years. I backed their first Kickstarter, which was just an LED array. So it was an 8x8x8 array of LEDs, and you could kind of like program it to do all this cool stuff. And I kind of went all in and got like 3 of them or 4 of them or something, and made a couple games for it. It was fun to work on. Anyway, all right, my deal, or what I'm going to talk about tonight. Oh, who am I? So I'm Martin Greider. As Zach said, I took over the VR, or not the VR, the IGDA Twin Cities chapter. The IGDA stands for International Game Developers Association. So it just happens to be an international organization devoted to game development. And Zach ran it for a lot more years than I've been running it. But I think I took it over 3 years ago. I've been a freelance developer, like a contract developer, software developer, since 2012. I started working on iOS apps in 2008 and had a game that came out in early 2009. Still had a day job and stuff at that point. So my early games were all iOS, or most of them were all iOS. And then about 2015, I saw the VR come in, and I was like, oh, I better start working in Unity. So I shouldn't say that. Maybe like half of my contract work now is in Unity. It's still like iOS stuff. And, very little of it is games, but there's been games here and there. This was a fun project that I worked on. between, there were two versions of it, and I wrote that down somewhere, 2016 and 2017. And this was actually shown in front of the actual hockey games, like the Minnesota Wild hockey games. The Highwood Credit Union was a sponsor, and so they had their booth, and they were just trying to spice up, their booth and get people to come by. And so we built this VR simulator. I guess it's like a hockey goalie simulator. That's actually the Minnesota Wild goalie there in 2016 playing our game. So I'm going to talk a little bit about just like what the project was, what it did, and I'll talk specifically about the hockey stick because that's the hardware part. That's the fun part. And then a few extras that are really just slides from the first time I did this presentation. So I'll skip over them pretty fast. So what was it? It was a simulator for a goalie. So you stood kind of in the arena. You were fully in like a life-sized hockey arena in virtual reality, standing in front of the goal and blocking shots while holding a real hockey stick. So that was the selling point: is that you didn't have controllers. You were just holding a hockey stick and blocking shots. It was built in Unity, or initially Unity 5 before they switched to their new naming convention, and then eventually Unity 2017. I used a bunch of plugins. It was in Git, and it was really just myself, and David Roberts, who did like some 3D modeling and worked on some of the other stuff around the project. And then I should mention that the client for this was Visual, who is run by Chuck Olson, who's like a longtime collaborator. So he's a great local guy to know in VR. He runs visualisgood.com. So anyway, so we built it over the course of 2 years. There was a version 1, and then it was so popular or successful or whatever that they had us come back and do version 2. The first version looked like this. So it had kind of a cardboard cutout of a hockey player. It was not a true 3D model. It was just like a 2D standee, basically. And it would skate up the ice toward you and then eventually shoot a puck at you, and kind of over and over again. But the blocking of the puck was really like, it felt real, like you were blocking it with, using Unity's physics colliders. And so it was like, that was the part that really like sold it. I mean, obviously being in VR sold it as well, but it felt pretty cool. It had ramping difficulty, so the more you blocked, the faster they would come down, and kind of the more wild their shots would be. There was some voiceover. It was basically scripted, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a bit. But there were 2 rounds, so you kind of had like a few shots at you, and then there was a break, and then you got a few more shots at you, and then it kind of thanked you for playing. And there were fireworks, which I do think I have a slideshot of, maybe. It showed your score, so you could compare it with other players. Kind of, and then the way that they did it, actually, I can't remember if this is, no, it doesn't really show it. But you can kind of see up here in the right, there was a big screen, so everybody could kind of watch what you were doing while you were playing. We had built these little robots, like little kind of like Roombas almost, that shot the pucks at first, but then they didn't like that. They wanted hockey players shooting at you. So version 2, the next year, we actually used a real 3D model of a hockey player with the animations and everything. So it kind of looked a lot more realistic. The graphics in general just were a lot better. I mean, the project didn't change that much, but we did add we souped up how it looked a little bit. There was a lot more levels of difficulty. I think there were 10 instead of 3. So it just kind of functioned totally differently in terms of the what you did. The 2 rounds were different. We added a glove, you kind of just held the stick with one hand, and then you could block the shots with the glove. It was optional. You didn't have to use the glove, and the glove was just holding the other controller. And then we also added a collider that hung down from the headset, so you could block the shots with your body as well. And part of the reason we did that was that the shots actually came up off the ice in version 2, which they never did in version 1. That was one of the things that the feedback from the actual hockey goalie was that it didn't feel very realistic that they never shot up off the ice or something like that.
It was probably too easy for them.
Maybe. Yeah. So we added some other like user interface stuff. Like there was a interface for the person running the demo as well, which there wasn't in the first version. To restart it, they had to like press R on the keyboard, but they didn't really see anything. We added all these kind of buttons on the bottom right here.
Yeah, I got to demo your first version. I wish I had known that you had a second version. I would have.
Oh yeah.
Would have loved to have tried that.
So this is what the hockey stick looked like. So we essentially just used the controller, and we kind of experimented with a ton of different ways of strapping the Vive controller to the hockey stick, and this was kind of the most robust. I mean, the biggest thing is that stability is obviously super important because it's a long stick. If it was wobbly at all, the stick would wobble even more, right? Like it would be multiplied because it's it's this long thing, and because you were holding on to the other end of it, the controller was kind of down by your feet, so you really didn't want that to be off. You wanted that to feel like exactly where it was. And using these sort of like giant rubber twist ties, we basically had no problems with that. So there's like kind of a pad. I don't remember what those pads were made out of, but we put these pads between the controller and the stick, and then we just like zip tied them down basically. And this is what it looked like the first year. I don't have a shot of what it looked like the second year. We got rid of all the silver tape. Like I think that might even be duct tape there. We got rid of all that, and it was just kind of black and looked a lot more sleek the second year. But other than that, is essentially the same thing. And the part of the reason for the twist ties too was that we could easily swap out the controller. So in the first year, we definitely always had like the right and the left controller there just in case. I don't think we ever actually ran out of battery. I mean, the demos didn't, it wasn't that long because it was just before and after the hockey games. So a couple hours max, I think. Maybe it was 4 hours max. But anyway, we didn't really have problems with the controllers being running out of battery. We did have the Vive trackers actually came out between version 1 and version 2, and I probably spent 20 hours trying to get that tracker working consistently. And this was before I had a conversation with Zach about how important it was for the Bluetooth to be just that one tracker. And so I only had attached to my PC, which I'm not a PC guy really. So I was doing this Vive development, like working on an environment that I really am not familiar with. Like I'm a Mac guy. And the PC that I had bought just to do VR didn't have Bluetooth. So I was working with Bluetooth dongles, right? And the Vive actually comes with the Bluetooth, it has Bluetooth in the little, I don't even know what that thing is called. It comes with the thing that you plug your headset into is also a Bluetooth thing, and that's how the controllers talk to that. And so when I got the tracker, it came with a Bluetooth dongle, but I think I screwed up somehow, by like doing them in the wrong order. Anyway, the point is I never really got the tracker working consistently. I could either use the tracker or the controllers and never both at the same time. And I mean, of course, after that conversation with Zach, 20-minute conversation, I was able to go home and get it working perfectly. But by that point, we'd moved on. We were not bothering with that for this project. So here's what the pad, like the glove looks like on the other side of your hand. And we did actually add like a pad to the stick as well, in addition to the collider hanging down from you. I wanted to get a screenshot of how it was all set up in Unity for this screen. And I went in to like reopen the project, and it was just completely broken now. VRTK in particular. So this project like relied on VRTK, and which is just VR Toolkit. And that's just totally dead now. I don't know why. And I'm not sure if, maybe what the problem was is that I had not imported. This is it's telling me to take. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Anyway, I did not get a screenshot of that for this slide deck. But this screenshot from before is just of the just that one object, the VRTK interactable object script. And so this isn't super useful anymore because VRTK has completely changed how it does everything. And actually, I reevaluated VRTK for a different project this maybe like 2 months ago, and I wouldn't recommend it anymore. It's been supplanted by there's another project called VRIF, Interaction Framework or something like that. And that's actually a paid project. It's in the Unity Asset Store, but it's basically doing all the same stuff that VRTK used to do and doesn't do anymore. Mostly around like interactions, like holding on to things and moving things in VR. So the way that this works underneath, the project works underneath, is that it's a state machine for the demo. And I mentioned I would just like move through this really fast. So here are the states, and it just updates them in the update method. There's a few of the states aren't timed, so like here's like a little bit about like the exceptions. Most of them are timed. Most of the states are timed. It'll move automatically to the next one. But at the waiting state, which is like the sort of after a player has gone through, that'll just happen forever. So the operator has to press like a button. I think it's just a space bar. And then in version 2, there's a button on the screen to restart the experience. I'll just keep moving off that. This is all the paths that the hockey players could like go down the ice toward you. And I kind of manually put these in. Initially, I wanted to randomize it, and it just was too painful to randomize. So we ended up with just this like path. It's using a plugin called Path Magic in the Asset Store that worked really well. So I was going to talk. I mean, in the previous talk, I talked about VRTK quite a bit, but basically I don't recommend it anymore. So I think I'm just going to skip right past this. We did use, so here's this path magic, and you can see these paths. And then I also included this like fireworks collection in there, and that was pretty nice. I think I mentioned that before. And getting the fireworks actually working was like a couple hours of work. That was kind of nice. And then probably the funniest thing about like the Asset Store stuff is that we used this hockey arena. And this was actually not a cheap asset. I want to say it was like a $200 Asset Store purchase. So it had no reviews in the Asset Store. And, we kind of looked around and like, there weren't any like free 3D like assets for hockey arenas. And, it's like, we kind of decided for $200, even if we have to model on top of everything, like if we, have to redo the whole thing, this is still worth the purchase. And we ended up using it. I mean, it was great. It ended up being really great for our purposes. And so I went in and I wrote a review. I think this might be the only thing I've actually ever written a review for in the Unity Asset Store. And that led to project work. Like 2 years later, somebody saw my review and emailed me and said like, hey, I saw your review of this asset. Do you think it would work for an AR game? And I was like, I think so. It was like, it's pretty low poly. Like it, I had no problems using it. And the guy wrote me back. He's like, yeah, we're doing this. And he went into a bunch of details about his project and said, would you be interested in working on that?
That's cool.
And so I worked on another project just because I reviewed this asset in the Asset Store.
Wow.
So
I hardly ever review. I should do that more.
Well, I think that might be the only one I've ever done. So that's really all I prepared. Does anyone have any questions?
How did it actually work, or what kind of problems in practice shuffling people through there?
I did almost none of that. I actually literally never saw it in operation, and I feel a little bit bad about that, but I'm not like a sports guy. I just don't care about that. David Roberts was the other person on the project. He did a bunch of the 3D modeling, and he also is like demoer extraordinaire. So he's like helped run what's the film festival that has some VR in town? Does anyone know? Maybe Scott knows. But he's run that.
The thing that's at night.
Yeah. which I can't remember what it's called.
Well,
Minnesota Film Festival or something.
David's working out at the mall now, or was at the.
Right. Yeah, I haven't asked him about that lately.
Yeah.
I can't imagine they're open right now.
Yeah.
But
No,
yeah, he
the
works at the
company's
Void
gone.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you say it's gone?
Yeah.
Oh, is the Void gone?
That's too bad.
Yeah.
That's too bad.
So Marty, I do have a real quick question. You mentioned the feedback on version 1 where the actual hockey player was saying that it wasn't coming off the ice. What was the feedback on version 2? Did they feel like it was very realistic? Or?
Yeah, in fact, the very same guy, he actually said when it came up off the ice in the real one, he was like, he expected to feel it when it hit his chest, right?
Okay. Yeah.
He said it felt so real. It was like, oh, he's like, bracing himself, and then when he didn't feel it, it was like, oh, that was jarring for him because he's so used to that.
Because he was immersed. That's
right.
High praise coming from a professional athlete.
Right, and even the first version, actually, he said really felt like he was on the ice, like he was in it.
I used to be a hockey goalie, and I got to play a demo probably maybe the same time Thomas did, and it was great. I love that thing. It was really fun.
I think having the stick really just is a huge amount of immersion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like what Zach was talking about, anytime you have something that's real like that, it really works.
Yep.
Yeah, there he is.
So
I can't remember his name.
I'm wanting to give Paul some more time, so we're 4 minutes into Paul's time.
Perfect. I caught up a little bit.
Yeah,
Marty, how could you be so
thank you for being so quick.
Really quick comment. I never got to use this experience, but I was working at MentorMate at a time when they had this in for a meet and greet or something that they're doing at MentorMate, and
that was where I demoed
get to try it.
Yeah,
but I heard great things from everybody who tried it. So this is a really cool project, and I'm definitely bummed I wasn't able to. The line, there was just a long line, and I was an employee and not one of the people that were invited for the other event. So I kind of was waiting, and definitely high praise on everybody from everybody on this.
Nice. Yeah, it's funny because I don't even know all the places it's been shown, because I think Chuck will pull it out for demos on occasion, even still, I think.
All right, so Paul, do you think you could do this in 25 minutes by chance?
Yeah, easily.
I know. Okay, good. I know you said 30.
I'm just going to be meandering about like YouTube and Google Photos and whatnot. Cool. Whenever you want to cut me off.
I can't say how psyched I am to see Paul's lab there behind him.
Yeah, I love the saxophone.
With the alto sitting there and everything.
That's a tenor. Yeah.
That's a tenor, yeah. Thanks, Scott.
So do you want to introduce yourself real quick? Again, sorry, I didn't do that.
Sure, yeah. I mean, most of you know me. What's there to say? I'm primarily a web developer by trade, but I managed to spend a lot of time working with VR and hardware and whatever, and just because I've been interested in it since the first Oculus Kickstarter. Like about a month before that was announced, I was like gearing up to buy. There was like some Sony stereoscopic HMD for watching movies, and IR track. I was gonna like drop $1,000 and jury rig a VR headset, and then a friend showed me the Kickstarter, and I'm like, oh, all right, I'll wait. And I'm glad I did.
Good choice.
I mean, mine would have had side to side head tracking, but it probably would have been crap and made me sick. So. So I also like the sax there. There's a bunch of instruments all around the room, and they're all like hanging up because I just jump around a lot to different things. So like this has been really good. I actually took a couple days off work just to like figure out what like some of these projects are a few years old and I haven't like looked at them in a while, and I actually like rebuilt some and got stuff up and running, and yeah, so I'll show you some stuff. I'll just share my screen. I should be able to share the whole screen now because I reduced my resolution. So let's see. I lost, I can't see anyone.
We can see your screen just fine.
All right. I guess I won't worry about it then. That's
yeah,
great.
We're good. We're still all here.
So, Zach's not the only one with a Razor Hydra on his head.
Yours is in the front.
Yeah,
cool.
so this was, I was showing off my glove. That's the DK1, of course. And this is at a hackerspace in Philadelphia where I lived before moving here. And yeah, this was featured in a news article. Someone was interviewing people at the hackerspace, and this is this red part here. That was like part of an old sock that I thought looked pretty cool. And that's wrapping the circuit board from a Razer Hydra controller. Yeah, I managed to like strip that whole thing down without breaking. No, I did break off one of the coils, but I managed to solder it back on, and it worked.
Cool.
But yeah, so that's a Razer Hydra, and the hand is, you know, tracked accurately enough with reference to the face. So it worked. It worked pretty well. You can see like these this like shiny part.
Yep.
These are all flex sensors made of Velostat, sandwiched between like space tape, I like to call it. Just like metallic aluminum tape for like ducts, not duct tape, but the more like flexible kind. But yeah, the point is it's conductive, and you're able to like sandwich the stuff between it. And the Velostat is a material that changes resistance with I think it's like as you smash it, which is like a side effect of bending it. And so yeah, there's these wires kind of like threaded out through here, and then this hooks up to an Arduino that each one of these sensors has a voltage divider circuit on it, so it's able to like have some scalar value for flex. And I made a model of it in I was using processing at the time because my job, I was working in Java all day, and I thought like, well, I don't want to learn Unity because then I got to go back and learn C# and a whole thing. I'm already kind of tinkering with processing. It's Java. I don't have to task switch so much. And eventually when I started to do some more advanced stuff, I realized, oh, processing doesn't have any kind of like object transform hierarchy that you would expect in a game engine. Processing is just like this library for doing graphics. Like it's really great for just like drawing stuff for graphics, but I ended up just like digging in deeper and like learning how to sort of implement what you get for free in Unity. And yeah, I guess any time I saved by not like having to learn a new language, I just threw down the toilet. By yeah, it's just like tons of code, but it's good to have a handle on how this stuff is all constructed. But anyway,
Had you done a 3D math or 3D graphics course before that?
I minored in math, and I did make it up to like Calc 3 and linear algebra. I've since forgot all that stuff. So quaternions were really hard to wrap my head around.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like, I was excited about it then because I knew, like, hey, this is the stuff they used to make 3D games. And that was in like 2003, 2004, before it was just like like before people were like holding your hand. Like I was trying to like learn DirectX just by like reading their documentation, and just it was just so painful back then. Yeah, so yeah, this glove, I did a whole like presentation on the glove. When I moved here, I was thankful to find Zach's VR club, and it was booming in its heyday when we could meet in person, and
yeah,
and VR was still like in the future. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, Zach.
Did you ever think about doing a second glove, or were you like me, where you gave up after you got?
Yeah, like pretty much as soon as I got it running and did a couple things with it, I just put it on the shelf.
Yeah.
I thought about doing another one because one of the MNVR members, Ryan, he worked for like a defense company. I'm sure he still works there.
Yep.
And they had Cyber Glove, which
I used to use a Cyber Glove too.
But yeah, they were throwing it out, and you know.
Yeah, he brought it to the bar one day.
He gifted it to me, so I considered hacking that up, and like I've got like some small, very small Arduino with motion sensors built into it. I was gonna make some kind of like mobile data glove, but never really saw that through. I stopped short at like trying to run a WebSockets server on a Android phone. It was just like over my head. But yeah, used it at one of the game jams. So this is Bird Marionette. This is all in processing as well. And I was playing with bullet physics. So this you're controlling this marionette looking kind of thing, and there's a lot of weight in the feet, and so you're like dragging this plane that's very lightweight across this other plane.
Oh, that is so cool.
I kind of want to revisit this idea and do some more, because I like this as a premise for a game where you're moving throughout the world, but you're stationary, and it's immersive, but it's third person. I think it's a fun combination of things.
Yeah,
It's a good set of motions for the Quest hand tracking, because you don't have to overlap your hands or touch things.
Yeah, totally. I still have yet to like build something that runs on the Quest, but it's
Now, before VR, did you ever do any puppets like that? But just as a hobby, or
so there was one like that inspired this. Like there's like a classic like cheap bird marionette that someone had at my house in Philly, and yeah, I guess I just remembered
that's
that.
cool.
Like,
It's such a cool idea. I just when you were showing that, I was like, oh, I'd like to try that.
yeah, VR. I think VR is great for puppetry. I think there's a lot. I've done a few other things with puppetry that I'll show too. Um, and then this is another game jam thing. I forgot about the game jam things until Zach brought up his page. There's David Roberts.
It's Dave again.
I'm getting a call from Darren Prentice right now, but I'm not going to answer it. But the idea here was, so I had this, what do you call it? Like a stair stepper, like a fitness machine, just like just like a little, the stairs part of it. It's not like a Nordic track or one of the bigger machines, but I got this thing at a garage sale and put a gear and a potentiometer on it, hooked it up to the Arduino, and then I wanted to build like a mech, but that was a little ambitious. So what we ended up doing was building this ridiculous Pong game where it's 3D. Okay, it's Pong. It's a 3D rendered version of a 2D game because like the mechanics are still very much 2D.
Yeah.
But the paddles are controlled by stepping back and forth on the stair stepper. So you're just playing yourself, and then like what happens is every time you miss, you rise up in the air a little bit further away from the game board, and eventually you're like up in the clouds. You just keep losing, and then you're just there's no way there's no way you can recover. It was, I don't know, it was just a silly excuse to use these stair steppers or something. David did the modeling, which I like. Some nice low poly stuff.
Did you lose any weight while testing it?
Great question. I didn't test it that much. I don't think so. I think I gained whatever I lost with the free pizza at demo night.
There you go.
Okay, so there's that stuff. What else? Yeah, so here's just my photo album of demos, and so this is one of the things I ended up rebuilding because I realized I never actually got any good footage of the airship itself. But yeah, let me see. I've got some pictures of the mechanics. So yeah, I reassembled this over the weekend. I got this bike trainer pretty cheap from someone whose wife bought a Peloton. So yeah, I just used my existing bike and this bike trainer, and then I built this. I thought I had a picture of the sensor. Is this it? No. Well, there's a sensor that kind of, it's right here. Rather than like buying a tachometer for a bike, I just looked up, how do you build like an optical sensor? Because that was something that I thought I'd want in my toolbox. So yeah, it's pretty simple. Just IR LED and an IR photo sensor, and this runs into the Arduino, and there's some way to like this. So this triggers an interrupt, which is like, I guess, like the fastest way to like do like, I don't know, do this kind of sensing with an Arduino. But it senses every time one of these like pieces of tape passes by it. And what I do with that is I send that into Unity, and every time that happens, I kind of like pulse a force on this airship. And
you have 4 pieces of tape on the tire?
Yeah, so I had to play around with how many pieces of tape. Like first, like I thought it would be really elegant to just put it on that, like on this wheel itself. Because yeah, like this is my bike, and I don't want, like, the tape's not gonna last. But it's a little too fast for the sensor. So I had to play with, kind of a sweet spot of amount of tape where like it doesn't overwhelm the sensor, and also like you can start pedaling real slow, and you don't have to, the wheel doesn't have to spin a full revolution to get going. I'm sure I could do better by like having 2 sensors and sort of like, well, there's a lot of ways to improve this. I'm sure like there's other stuff running on this Arduino as well that's probably getting in the way of like optimal performance. So, but yeah, it was just kind of like a weekend project. But yeah, I reassembled it, and this is a good way to try out this forest asset that I want to use for a music game. Yeah, a lot of stuff is like, my computer's pretty under spec'd, so it's kind of low frame rate. So the first person view I do have, but it's yeah, it's pretty stuttery. So this you can watch without.
That's really nice. It's beautiful. Wow.
And yeah, this is my first time playing with the HD render pipeline in Unity. I guess Oculus haven't updated their avatar shaders yet, so I'm invisible. Otherwise, I'd be pink and visible with one eye.
Did you have like forest noises and all that in this?
No, not yet.
Okay.
I do have noises of like I have a click every time there's a pulse from the bike sensor, and
wow.
I was kind of doing some sound design for that, and I just kind of.
This is just beautiful. I would love to play this. I would lose weight on just the peacefulness of it. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's the lighting. Like I didn't make any of the beautiful stuff. I did this the airship I did in Google Blocks, and yeah, this is just like a demo asset from Nature Manufacture. So yeah, I just kind of like plopped it in, and it was good to go. And yeah, I agree. It's like when you get up close, it's kind of like, it's clear that it's a video game, but like you kind of blur your eyes, and the lighting and all the like photogrammetry is just right, that it kind of does the trick. Where yeah, I feel a little bit of that like peace and quiet from a real forest.
Right. Wow. I love the water too. That's nice.
Yeah. It's $25. It's on sale for half price.
Might have to get that. That's really cool.
So there's that. So the airship part of it is everything that I didn't get in this other demo. This is when I initially set it up, and I don't really do any kind of like art or modeling. I'm really just focused on the mechanics more so, just because it takes time and
Yeah.
you can't do everything. But yeah, so I didn't have anything to explore. I imported, my partner had an MRI of her head, and I imported that into some software and turned it into a model, and then imported that into Unity, and I was just kind of like, so you can see like the shadow of my airship and my avatar. So I'm just kind of like, flying this. This is one of the more surreal things I've done in my life, I guess.
Wow.
And yeah, I'm trying to like do this while like pointing my phone at the screen. So it's a video. But I do like this as a means of getting around in VR.
Pedaling.
Yeah, it's it kind of like it's a little more believable than just pushing forward on the thumbstick to move forward. Like so that's that. Yeah, I guess here's a close up of that sensor, and then here's the count of how many times the piece of tape has passed. Here's a picture of this like crazy. This is the Arduino that I have. I have it sitting. I've got this like briefcase. I thought I copied all these. Oh yeah, it's right here. So I've got this briefcase, this giant breadboard, and an Arduino with. I just wanted to see how many. What's it called? It's a Mux. Now I forget the name of it. But there's these hats that you can put on top of the Arduino, and they stack. It's a multiplexer that just like multiplies your inputs and outputs. So there's like 3 times 16 on each one, and like each row of 16 is configurable on the fly as either a digital or analog input or a digital output. And so rather than like buying an Arduino for every project, I thought, well, why don't I just have this one giant thing and plug a bunch of stuff into it modularly.
Very cool.
Between Axeman and the University Reuse Center, I've gotten a lot of just like parts that are useful for this. So this is this portion down here. That's what the bike is running on. This one is I got some organ pedals from Axeman, and so these are all just switches, and they're running into they're getting converted into MIDI. And then this other one is this other project that I never actually like did anything with. I got it assembled, and you could see it like under the bike here, but it's like an office mat with more of those like flex sensors, but here like you can step down on them, and RGB lights underneath them. Okay. How am I on time?
We're a little over, but
yeah,
you know,
okay.
we started late on you, so.
Yeah, all right. I'll just show you this Office demo video then. So I've that's not. Yeah, that's it. I scanned my office because like I don't have a lot of open space in here, and let's see. Yeah, it's just a lot of feedbacks. So there we go. And the place. I got this little sun here. If I don't like the lighting. Yeah, there we go. It's a little too bright, but you could see the wireframe. Wireframe's pretty bad with the chair over there. Got a drum kit over here. Keyboards over here. Another desk over here. Yeah, I'm going to turn the lights down. Yeah, that's good. So here's this reflects my monitor. I can use this for live coding Unity and like creating objects, cubes mostly in here, just by typing in some commands. But I can't show you that right now because I'm recording my screen with a camera. VR performance is pretty terrible when you have a screen recorder going, and I have an under-spec machine. So. Here's my chair. Found out that Herman Miller posts 3D models of all their chairs, so that's pretty great. There's 3D printed a little mount to put the third controller on here. Wrote a little script to keep the wheels from spinning with the chair. It's not perfect, but it works pretty well. Wow. Slide that under the desk there. Here's a 3D scan of a deer skull that I found in a lake. It sits right where the actual skull is. That here is a model of a iwi that's a wind controller. That has a mount for a tracker as well, but it's currently on this chair. All right, so here's like I wanted to use this to live stream, but performance is just abysmal as soon as you turn on Zoom. So maybe in the future I'll buy a better computer, but it does all the cool stuff that you want when you combine a camcorder and a screen. Yeah, there you go. And I've used this with like several screens going to do some trippy visuals. For an EDM show. All right, what do we got? This thing, what's that? Okay, we can expand this, make it bigger. So each of these eggs, you can hit it and it'll make a note. And this is laid out kind of like a guitar, only it's actually more like a violin if a violin had frets. So performance kind of bad right now because I have too much stuff running. But when I have this running on a dedicated computer, sending messages over the network, it's pretty. It's like you're hitting real stuff. Got some haptic feedback on here. It's pretty satisfying. But yeah, you can like what? Yeah, the tracking is really not working very well right now. So I'm not able to really hit everything I want to hit. Show this little theremin.
Play with it. That's my friend there. I'll turn on this theremin. Wait, yeah. So I work with spatial audio. All the audio is actually running in a DAW Reaper, and there's a VST plugin that will send messages, OSC messages for like the energy distribution of spherical audio. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, I'm just using like a particle system for that. I don't know of a better way. It seems to not impact performance too much when I turn it on or off. So this theremin's got one trick that a regular theremin doesn't have, and that's so you kind of sing with it. But yeah, it's not fun to play right now because
tracking.
Looks fun.
Yeah,
Sounds fun.
That's how Radiohead made some of those songs.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's that. I'm sure there's a bunch of random other stuff. Some more. I did some puppetry with Leap Motion at Burning Man a couple summers ago. But yeah, I'm out of time. So.
No, but that's really cool. I wish we could keep going. I suppose especially since we're recording, this is already over 2-hour video. So, but I, this has been a fantastic meeting. Thank you everyone for sharing all this.
Thank you for organizing, Tom.
Yeah.
And thanks for pushing it back. We were supposed to do it in August or something.
Yeah, I first talked with Zach about this. I think it was at the last IGDA Christmas party like a year ago. So it kept getting pushed, and even then, though, Zach was saying, "Make sure you get Paul in on this." So I'm really glad that we finally got it all pulled together, because this has been a great. And I'm also really glad that we recorded this because I'm sure people will want to watch this. So just a reminder, tomorrow for Scott. Scott, do you want to say something about
7 o'clock? Go to Minnesota Electronic Theater.com. .org, and they'll tell you where. They have a link to go for the Minnesota Electronic Theater tomorrow at 7 o'clock, and it will also have a link. They'll take you to the VR party we're going to have to watch the video while the normal people watch it on YouTube. Some brave souls will experiment trying to watch it as a group in Hub.
Yeah.
Thanks to Tom, I've used Hub before, and we tried to do it in All Space VR, and they broke our hearts. And so with Zach and Marty's help and some other people's help, we think we've got it set up in Hub, but we might all be watching it 2D in YouTube after all, but we'll see.
Yep. I'll be there for sure. And then Zach, do you want to mention again next week? So we, instead of having a social after this, that'll be what Zach is doing next week.
Yeah. We're going to meet up in Rec Room, and that works in VR. It also works without VR on iOS and PS4 and PC.
And the date and time again?
The 9th and 7 to 9 p.m.
Week from tonight.
Yeah.
Week from tonight. Yeah, just go to IGDA-TC Eventbrite.
Yep. So I'm signed up for that too. All right. Anyone else have any last things to say before we end this?
Thanks for doing this.
Okay. All right. You guys have a good one. We'll see you tomorrow and next week.
Yep.
Okay. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Good night.
Thank you.